Hi, welcome to Matt Holman Golf. I thought we'd take a look at Trevor Immelman's pitching action today. I've got some great footage I got from the David Ledbetter Academy at Championsgate when Trevor was taking lessons out there. Let's have a little run through this. So I think relative to the target on the right hand side, we can see maybe his feet are aiming fractionally left relative to his target line. But it's certainly not anything excessive. I don't like to see players aiming overly left. It will tend to create a path that's sort of too much across the ball, and it's very easy to get steep angle of attack and start to take too big a divots. So you can see he's maybe 5 yards left of his target line, arms hanging nicely under his body. And then I think what I really like with his pitching action, swings really nicely on plane. So if we look at that club head relative to the shaft plane line, it's going to just track pretty much straight up that. The other thing I like for this shot, he's very much getting the leading edge of the club vertical. That's really going to allow him to use the bounce and avoid the club digging in. I know the work I've done with the Ledbetter guys there, they don't like to see that face looking down too much in a pitch shot. Very easy to get that leading edge digging into the ground, especially on the Florida Bermuda grass. Then it really exaggerates the fact. So he's getting really sort of nice toe up there, and then he works it into a really nice halfway back position, arms in the centre of the chest, shaft just inside the ball. Slightly steep and relative to the shaft plane line, but it's certainly not over steep. I'd say this is very orthodox. Now everything's just going to come back down on the same line it went up on. Retains his body angles. You can see the club heads just works back down the shaft plane line. I think problems really happening in pitching and chipping for players when the club starts to get underneath that line in the backswing, or definitely in the downswing, and the club face also gets too shut. Consistent contact then becomes very difficult, and really there's always two strike points. There's a point where the club head hits the ground, the ball, and then the second point where it hits the ground. Now when that club face starts to get too shut coming down, our second contact point, the club will tend to dig in too much, and it won't sort of bounce and slide through and take a nice shallow divot. But he works back down on the line he travelled up on, and then mirrors it through. I think maybe just the last point I want to make, I think what they've really found out is they talk about kinematic sequence, and really it's just a more complicated way of saying what the sequence that occurs from the top through, or the movement sequence. And what they found with the best pitchers relative to the best strikers of the ball, that when we hit a long shot, we really want this nice dynamic movement from the ground up, lower body leading the action, followed by the arms, and then finding the club head. But what they found in actually a lot of the best chippers and pitchers, that sequence is reversed, and it's verging on the club and arms will lead the chest. The chest will then start to move and lead the hips, and then finally the lower body comes through. So you can see actually, especially if I was to pull up a driver on iron shot here, you can see how passive his lower body is. There isn't excessive clearing of the left side through the ball, and then everything can keep moving through. And they call that sort of intentionally weak. So in terms of the long shots, we really want to be intentionally powerful, where we don't need to put that much effort into our swing, but the sequence creates a lot of distance and power. And actually in the short game we want the opposite, where we can feel we can be very aggressive without hitting the ball too far. So let's take a look from this view over the camera. I think it's a great view again to highlight that club face. You can see how it's staying looking to the sky. It's definitely not closing down. Nice neutral club face. Turns the chest well, pulls the club really nicely in front of him back to square club face. You can see how he's just taking a small scraping where he's used the bounce, and you can see how that leading edge is sort of near enough sort of perpendicular to his target line there, and then everything keeps moving and turning through. And again on the right hand side, something I really like to see in pitching, good pitches, is how this club face looks back at us. I don't really want to see too much rotation in that face unless you're playing a specialist shot. Hopefully these thoughts help.